Hi, Todd.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm going to start the meeting in just a second, Chief.
Sure.
So I'm actually pushing this to Facebook.
Okay, great.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, you bet.
Hey, we are live, I believe. And this meeting is being recorded. So, Chief, I'll turn it over to you really soon in the meeting, and you do with that what you wish. So,
Sure. Do you want to give people a few minutes to?
Yeah, we start usually like 3 or 4 minutes after the hour, since most people are just getting settled in. So,
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm in no rush. So if you want to make sure you have everybody on that you're expecting, then no problem.
is this your first community meeting as police chief?
Yeah, it is.
I'm honored. I'm honored.
I think I'm going to do council member MDs. I think that one's in person though next week. I think we're kind of in that transitional period right now where things are starting to move from virtual back to in-person. I did my first in-person staff meeting today with police departments.
Was that right?
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I'll be interesting to see. I may ask people tonight if they want to, whether or not they want to do it in person or not. So, you know,
yeah,
some
it's
people
funny,
actually
right?
like being at home and they don't have to leave, and although some people like being in person, I guess. So,
you know, in the evening, I think initially when COVID started, people were reluctant to have the virtual meetings, and over time, there's become a bit of a sense of convenience to it, and then the ability to do the screen sharing and, you know, not have to be out and about, especially for council meetings. I mean, look at the meeting last night, you know, midnight. That would have been a late night. And
yeah, tell me about it.
I'm lucky. Department staff meetings are a little different because everyone's already on site working here in the station. So it's just they're collecting everybody and going into a, you know, an office. So it's a little bit different, but
yeah, I think it's okay for staff and I think it's okay for council, but for people to be there 12:30 at night, I'm sure a lot of them would rather be on their computer at home. So yeah, but we'll take an informal poll tonight sometime to see if people want to go back to in person or not. So
yeah, the interesting thing will be is how the public can contribute on some of the agenda items if they're going to be able to still participate if they're not in person and all that. So because that'll be interesting too in those with those really late night discussion items.
Exactly. It's interesting.
I'll be there.
It's interesting. Some of our meetings surprisingly are not as well attended, I thought, online as they are in person. So yeah, it's interesting. Now the other thing is we have a lot of people contributing via e-comment, and so that's their right. So you know, maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. As long as we can get as many people involved as possible, that's the key.
That's it.
So, yeah. Good. We'll give it another minute or two.
Sure.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing, Todd?
Pretty good. Hanging in there, Ross. Julia, push your camera down just a little bit so we can see all of you.
Oh, okay. Let me see.
Nope, the other way. Now we can't see any of you.
What I need
Down.
to do is move
Little
my-
further. Little further. We almost got you. Nope, wrong way. There you go. That's better.
Oh,
Much better. Thank you.
now what you can see.
Now we see you and not the top of your head. So.
Hi, Todd. Do you see me? Sheila
Hey,
Garcia?
Sheila, see you. Yes.
Good. I hope I'm going to be able to speak for like 2 minutes when you have a chance.
We're going to give
I'm
everybody a
representing
shot
a
at
group.
speaking.
I'm representing a group tonight.
Okay. Maybe we'll start with announcements at the beginning. Usually they don't last too long, and then we'll go into go into Chief Hoffman. So I think it's a prerequisite for your name to rhyme with Chief Kaufman.
I'm sure there'll be a few people getting it confused early on.
Hoffman, Kaufman. So
yeah.
Okay, well, we'll give it a start now. Everybody, hey, welcome to the March community meeting for District 2. Good to see all your faces. Just a real brief informal question for you. How many of you would like to see in-person meetings resume? So raise your hand.
I don't like it.
And how many of you would like to be on Zoom, continue on Zoom? So it's about split so far. We might do both.
Yep.
So anyway, we'll give it a shot. But anyway, real briefly, we'll start off with announcements. Does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make to the community for District 2? I think Sheila, you mentioned. And by the way, if you would like to speak, if you go under reactions at the bottom of your screen, you'll see it. You click on it, it'll say raise hand, and then you raise your hand like that. And then again, at the end, you go back to reactions to lower your hand. So again, it's under reactions. So Sheila, you had an announcement. Did you want to speak?
Okay, well, welcome to the new chief.
Thank you.
I have a child in the school district of Redondo, but then also I have a huge group behind me, and we're a little concerned. And I'm going to be transparent. When we were going to school board meetings, the police were kind of weaponized against us, and like we're domestic terrorists. We're not. We love our children, we love the community, and we wanted to stay as such. So I'm vetting people because we are voters, and we're hoping that the whole city's on board with taking care of the children. Some of the issues coming up, we're really not a part of. A lot of parents work, and they're very concerned. And I'm not an anti-masker. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm a mom that loves my child, and we love Redondo Beach as the community as is. We're not into this diversity, equity, inclusion. I can say that because I'm Mexican. So I think it's gone overboard in that way. We have a lot of senior citizens, and a lot of senior citizens, I actually have a couple of senior citizen group backing me up. And we haven't been able to like really form together because of COVID and things like that. But I just want you to know, Chief Hoffman, that we as parents love the police. The senior citizens love the police. Okay. And I know with your background that you're going to do wonderful. Okay. So just keep in mind that as parents, we're not domestic terrorists. We love our children. We love the community. We love Redondo, and we want to keep it that way. So we're hoping you all make decisions that are in alignment with how we feel. And I know that we say that, oh, the council isn't part of the whole system, but it is, because I've seen mayors speak up at school board meetings in support of parents and their children. Thank you.
Okay, Sheila, thank you. Yes, that's correct. I served on the school board before, and they are separate. Sometimes they don't even adhere to some of the ordinances we have. So, but yes, we can advocate for certain things. We do have relationships with school board members. And if there are things that you want us to discuss with school board members, we're glad to discuss it with them. But again, we don't have any domain over the school district, like you said. So
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks. Andy Lester, you had your hand up.
Yes, I did. Can you hear me now? Do I
Can hear
need
you
to
great.
unmute?
Yep.
Oh, great. Well, I just wanted to say, Chief Hoffman, a motorcycle officer just went by 15 seconds ago, lights and sirens. They're continuing the stop sign enforcement at Pearl and Francisca. Can't thank you enough. Everybody, I spoke at the council meeting last night, and I couldn't believe it. 10 minutes later, there was a black and white unit, pulled over 3 people in a row, because they don't even slow down for the stop sign. And now there's been 2 motorcycle officers for at least the past hour and a half writing tickets left and right for Pearl and Francisca. Thanks, Chief. And all the neighbors have noticed too.
I'd love to take credit for it, but I was actually on the council meeting, and I think this is actually a credit to the department, because when you spoke and mentioned about the stop signs, one of our patrol captain, who was actually monitoring the council meeting, heard what you said and asked for patrol to go out there immediately, and then followed up with the traffic unit to ask traffic officers to continue enforcement today. So that just goes to show you the dedication of the department to the community, because by the time that I had asked for them to conduct enforcement out there, you were already emailing me, telling me that you could see officers making stuff. So it just shows the commitment. They were watching the council meeting, heard what you said, and jumped on it immediately. And I was really, really pleased about that.
That's awesome, because so many neighbors walk their dogs and they've had so many hair-raising incidents, and I can watch this monitor here, turn my head to the left and watch people run that stop sign all the time, all the four-way. So I'll still give you credit, because credit comes from the top down.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andy. And I want to piggyback on that. How many of you seen the police sign that says loud exhaust fine? Have you seen any of you seen it on Catalina? I'll tell you what, how many tickets were written, Chief, over the last?
Just, well, we wrote 17 over the weekend, and they actually are tracking it all, and they provided me with a chart, and they showed me the day, the time, how many officers were out there, how much time they spent. So they actually wrote other tickets too, but they wrote 17 just for loud exhaust, but they wrote a total of 56 citations for various traffic-related violations in the area. And that was out of a total of 62 contacts. So they, I asked them to kind of just keep track of everything. I didn't even give them directions on how to do it. And it's been really nice. I've been reading about them in the patrol logs, and then taking the time to let the individual officers know that initiated those details, that their efforts are appreciated. You know, some enforcement quality of life issues don't get the recognition that they deserve. So happy to be a part of it.
Well, great, because I've heard nothing but positive comments. I think I mentioned to you on social media, on Facebook alone, there were about 284 likes and about 90 something comments. So people are very excited about it. It's, you know, these aren't things that when you think about becoming a police officer, that it's probably at the top of mind, but we do focus a lot on quality of life in this town. And I can speak on behalf of our residents. We really thank you guys for the enforcement efforts. So Mark Hansen.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I just wanted to announce, hopefully the majority of you by now know that the city is embarking on a big plan to place and replace recreational amenities in our harbor. In the chat box there, I put a list of the things we're working on. It includes a first ever public boat launch ramp, marine educational features, rebuilding the Seaside Lagoon, building a new sport fishing pier, and a variety of other things. I'm serving on the working committee for that. So I put my phone number and my email address in the chat box. So any of you who would like to learn where we're at progress-wise on that, or have questions or inputs for me, feel free to contact me. Be happy to chat with you.
And thanks for serving on that, Mark. For those of you who are not aware, we had a meeting a week ago from Monday. This might be the biggest thing that's going on in the city over the next 5 years. There's so many things that are going to come out of this. And I'm very excited about the recommendations from SWA, the architectural group. And we'll hopefully have the money to be able to fund most or all of it. So pretty exciting. I guess there's, I don't know if there's any more community meetings, right, Mark? Or
no, we have not scheduled the next community meeting. And in fact, at the Harbor Commission meeting, there was quite a bit of input from the commissioners that they would like to go on to do a live meeting, because our first two were online, and boy, we all know that's just not as effective. You don't get the crosstalk. And so a couple of them were asking me about if maybe I could get use of the yacht club. So I actually just talked to the club yesterday about that, and I'll try to see if I can work out a schedule with the consultant, because I think that'd be a lot more effective where everybody could sit there and talk and crosstalk.
that's great. Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. Delia, you're next.
Well, I follow the subject that was before what Mark started regarding the stop. First of all, welcome, new chief, and the best, because I am homeowner here living for 50 years, and I know very well the city. But I need to alert that unfortunately, I live 1 block from the Beryl High, a grammar school, in Lucia. And always Beryl is a freeway, and it's the school there. Nobody stopped. I am alive because it's a miracle. They don't like to kill old people. They maybe like to kill youngers, okay? What are the police waiting? that a tragedy happened, for all around the school, for a stop and make tickets to the people that does not stop at the stop sign. It's a freeway. Very is terrorific. And it's a school, a grammar school there. And you thought when you walk your dog or you walk around, I'm sure you saw that.
All the time, all the time.
It's really very serious, the problem. And the other thing that puzzled me is why the office that is the information in the pier is closed, totally closed. When the pier need to have police all the time, they walk the dogs that is not allowed. They go with the bike where it's not allowed. There is problem with no feel people safe, and it's closed. Why?
So that's going to be discussed. I'm sure Chief Hoffman will be discussing it. We're going to be reopening that, Delia. So it'll be discussed in a little bit.
Oh.
Yes. So you're right. You're absolutely right about Burl and Lucia. I've not only walked my dog across that, my kids, when they were in elementary school, you're literally taking your life in your own hands on that street. You know, somebody else has also brought up to me, we've added stop signs on Burl at Juanita and Irina. Somebody had mentioned to me Guadalupe. So we might look at that. But we still need enforcement. It's really tough. That street scares me very much because of all those kids walking across the street. And I always make sure I make eye contact with drivers because otherwise they don't stop sometimes.
Stop. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like was, because this city put regulations, but those regulations, they are never enforced. And then the former chief told me, if I see dogs are not on the leash, free in the park, like the Zuleger Park, I cannot walk anymore in Zuleger Park because every day about 10, 12 people in a round seated, they left loose 10, 12 dogs running loose for the park. What the city is waiting for.
Well, we'll talk about code enforcement as well too, because that's the police is coming.
Don't change that the dogs are not for the park when they know nobody follow the rules. And the police, the former chief told me, Delia, we call us. How can I call the police to say the dogs are loose? I feel there are more important things. That's the city that need to enforce the rule.
Okay.
Puzzle me. Anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comments. I know that Chief Hoffman will be discussing a lot of this. And the last person to speak is Barb Epstein. So Barb, if you can unmute yourself, and then we'll get into the introduction for the main event.
Thank you, Todd. I want to say how pleased I am to have our new police chief. He was so wonderful. Many years ago, we encountered a very unpleasant situation during 4th of July traffic control. One of the volunteer police was very rude and caused a problem for us. And Chief Hoffman was so wonderful and so helpful. And I just want to say how grateful I am and how pleased I am that he's going to be our new police chief. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, if you were at the meeting last night, neighbors, something that made me very, very happy was the city approved our license agreement to have our first community garden in Redondo Beach at Alta Vista School. So that was huge. And the support was amazing. Everybody is very excited about this project. And then the other thing was a discussion of the tree ordinance was wonderful. I'm looking forward to us doing a great job with our tree ordinance. It's got a lot of complicated elements to it, but I think it's going to work out very well. So that's my announcement for right now. And thanks again, Todd.
Thank you, Barb. Yes, we had a great meeting last night. At the end of the meeting, I'll kind of talk about a few of those things, but thank you. The main event tonight, it's introduction of our new police chief, Joe Hoffman. Not only does his name rhyme with Chief Kaufman, but like Chief Kaufman, his father was a veteran police officer, I think 30 years in LAPD, if I'm correct.
Right.
So just a little intro. Joe's been with the department since he was 19. He started as a cadet, a volunteer, and then a cadet. And then this is in the early 90s, I believe.
Yes.
So not dating you too much, right? And I think you've done everything. You've done SWAT, you've done motorcycle, you've done bike patrol. You became a lieutenant 3 years after, was it 3 years after joining? Was it 2006? Sorry.
Yeah,
No.
so no, I was a sergeant. I became a sergeant about 8 years after working here. I was a sergeant for about 3.5, 4 years, and then I became a lieutenant in 2006.
Right. So, okay. And then, so he's gone through the FBI Academy at Quantico. He has actually took in a senior management program taught at Harvard, and he has his bachelor's in criminal justice and master's degree in emergency administration from Cal State Long Beach. I'll just say, following Chief Kaufman is almost like following the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. It's a tough thing with big shoes to fill. But I'm really confident after talking with Joe that he totally understands what the community is looking for. I'm excited that he's going to continue the great work that Chief Kaufman has done, who continues to work with the fire department and has done amazing things there. So we're going to really miss Keith, but I'm very excited for Joe's tenure. And I'll turn it over to you, Joe.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'll just talk a little bit more about my background, just so everybody can kind of get to know me a little bit. Thank you for the introduction, though, Todd. It was very nice. And, Redondo's really been my home. So as Todd mentioned, my father worked for the Los Angeles Police Department. And when I was in high school, he lived in Redondo Beach. And I was probably about a junior in high school. I decided I wanted to follow in his footsteps and pursue a career in law enforcement. And I started talking to him about different police departments to work for. And over a series of serious discussions, he recommended that I pursue a job with Redondo Beach Police Department. He lived in the city. He really liked the city. He liked the way that the police department interacted with the community. So as a 19-year-old, I came down to the police department and applied for a cadet position. And while my application was processing to be a cadet, I asked if I could volunteer. And I filled out a volunteer application, and I started working in the records department and getting to know the department. And really, I just felt so great here, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I got hired at 20 years old and went into the police academy. I don't even think you can do that anymore. I think now you have to be 21. And I went in the academy and got out and kept pursuing my education, worked on my bachelor's after I was already a young officer, and worked a variety of assignments and detectives. And like Todd said, the SWAT team and a firearms instructor and motorcycles, worked that for a while. And really, really had a great opportunity to see the department go through a series of changes over the years and what the department focused on and different types of priorities and how society portrayed law enforcement. And really, the biggest thing is I got to work with a lot of different leaders. And I think that over the course of my 28 years with the Redondo Beach Police Department, I've been able to take a little bit from each one of the different chiefs that I've worked for. And I think that that's really developed me into a well-rounded candidate and made me very excited to step into this role. And I get it. Chief Kaufman was really a great mentor for me. I was very fortunate to have worked as a captain directly for him for the past 5 years. And he brought a style of policing that is very unique to the profession of law enforcement. The nature of the community outreach, 10 years ago, if somebody suggested some of the programs that he implemented, I would have thought that's really not going to work in this profession. And not only did he bring them, implement them, they are incredibly successful. And it's allowed us to focus on the type of outreach and connection with the community that lets us build trust at a level that's really unparalleled with other law enforcement organizations and causes us to be the envy of many police departments. And we showcase it. We have great social media. We portray ourselves in all kinds of different events. About 3 weeks ago, just before I promoted to chief, actually, we went out to Anaheim Stadium with Honda, and we rode the police motorcycles on the track of Anaheim Stadium before a Supercross event because of the type of police motorcycles that we have. And they actually announced over the loudspeakers, the Redondo Beach Police Department. And I was one of them. I still ride the motorcycle. And it was probably one of the scariest things I ever did because it was a dirt track. And I thought, this is not the time you want to crash in front of like 50,000 people. So it was a little bit nerve wracking, but it was a really cool event. And other police departments don't get to do stuff like that. And all those different types of experiences and everybody that I've worked with have really given me the opportunity to step into this role with a great amount of confidence and an incredibly solid foundation so that we continue moving forward. So I put a little PowerPoint together that was based off of a presentation that I did to council on March 1st. I changed some of the slides so I can kind of talk about some of the things that we're focused on and some of the technology that we use to try to stay in touch with the community and what the priorities are. But, you know, I want to be able to answer questions. There's a lot of different questions. There's a lot of also misperceptions about the way that the police department is structured and how we enforce and what our staffing numbers are and stuff like that. The Pierce substation obviously got brought up already tonight. So any questions, I want to try to get through some of the stuff that I have, but I really want to try to answer questions so that everybody leaves here with a better understanding of the way that the police department is structured and what we're going to be focused on. I see Wayne Craig's here. That's nice. He's in our Citizens Police Academy right now. And that is probably one of the #1 ways to learn about the police department, because we really bring in members from all the different units in the organization to actually discuss how each unit contributes to our overall mission. So hopefully when this is all over, maybe Wayne can kind of give us a firsthand experience of what he's experiencing in the Citizens Police Academy and how he would think that other people would benefit from attending as well. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. I always have a challenge with that, but I'm going to give it a shot. Let's see. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I figure I'll start talking about some of our crime rates. So this is a question that we get asked on a regular basis, and crime has been rising. And I want to be very, very upfront and open about some of the issues that we're experiencing, and then I'll be happy to answer questions about it. So there's a little chart here, and there was a significant decrease in crime between 2016 and 2019. We saw crime go down about 24% over the course of those 3 years. And then in 2020, there was a slight rise, but in 2021, we've seen crime in Redondo Beach go up 17%. And this is a nationwide issue. There's been a rise in crime all around the country and a very significant rise throughout Los Angeles County. And we're seeing a rise in assaults, in which I confirmed today with our crime analysis that a lot of those are domestic violence type related. So it's not just like a random assault on the street from an unknown person, but mostly assaults that are occurring between people that know each other, possibly reside together, and could be domestic violence related, which is concerning for sure. And there's definitely been a rise in theft. We're seeing an increase. We've been battling the theft of catalytic converters for some time now. We've been doing etching events and educational programs and trying to work with vendors that provide security devices. And it's incredibly challenging. And the problem is still continuing. I heard that we've already had 12 in the month of March. I found that out today. And it's a challenging situation because there's so many different groups of criminals that are out there stealing these things. And there's very little consequences for the theft. With the Zero Bail Initiative, our officers will actually arrest somebody for having catalytic converters and cordless sawzalls and jacks and everything in the car, and they'll be out within a matter of hours. And we have participated in search warrant operations where hundreds of these things are recovered. And it's really for about $40 worth of precious metals that are in there. And it could be $800, $1,000 to replace it. One of the items that we're going to be looking at as a police department is pursuing the consideration of a municipal code in Redondo Beach that would allow for more teeth when there is a theft of catalytic converters. So instead of relying on prosecution for just a theft related offense or trying to go to the district attorney's office, we would be able to prosecute that locally with our own city prosecutors, which would hopefully allow us to lower the rate that those crimes are occurring. So we've drafted up some ordinances that we're going to present to the city attorney, hopefully work that out and then move it towards city council before too long for their consideration, as it could potentially help us combating this crime problem, which continues to be on the rise. And then another alarming trend is the assault on police officers. I'll go to that one in a minute, but it's concerning because it's a difficult profession, and we're seeing a increase in resisting arrest, which oftentimes results in a battery that accompanies that. And I can talk a little bit more about some of the issues that we've experienced with some of the policies from the LA County District Attorney, but there is a special directive there about changes to misdemeanor charges. And one of the charges that is now one of the ones that would be dismissed, along with trespassing, disturbing the peace, and loitering, is resisting arrest. And I think that the reduction in consequences, even though it doesn't pertain to Redondo Beach, since we have our own city prosecutor, is a mindset issue throughout Los Angeles County. The LA County Chiefs of Police Association, which I'm now a member of, did a survey for agencies that don't have their own city prosecutor and rely on the district attorney for the prosecution of cases. 26 different agencies in Los Angeles responded. There's 88 cities in Los Angeles County. 26 different police agencies responded and indicated that they've had 8,725 cases that were declined by the district attorney based on that special directive alone. And I don't know what the details are on all those individual cases. However, that's a lot of crimes that could have led to probation or diversion or other sorts of maybe treatment programs, depending on what the case is, that likely contributed to the rise in crime, in my opinion. I know that this one's hard to read, but I wanted to put it on here because these is part of a report that I get on a regular basis that allows us to identify crime trends and allows us to determine how we can best deploy our resources, develop schedules, how we're going to assign patrol officers, canine officers, special details. And this provides us a snapshot. This is from early in March here. And this provides us a snapshot on what day of the week we're having the most crimes, what area of the city. And you'll see area 2, you'll be happy to know, has the lowest rate, likely due to the support from city council member. And the crimes are mostly property crimes. And we see that a lot in Redondo Beach, where a lot of the crimes are theft related from vehicles and such, and that's the majority of the crimes there. And interesting enough, the day of the week when we are experiencing the most reported crimes is on Thursday. So I just put this up there. Like I said, I know it's difficult to read, but this is some of the data that we use when we're determining how to deploy patrol schedules with the limited resources that we have, how to direct our special investigations unit, what types of issues we're going to identify, when we're going to put special details out at the mall, maybe because there's been smash and grabs from stores and things like that. So this is just one of the tools that we use that's prepared by our crime analysis unit based on data that we collect. So this is just a couple of charts that I put here that I can talk about, and maybe it'll generate some questions later. But there's been an alarming rise in the number of gun incidents that we've encountered in the city of Redondo Beach. In 2020, and gun incident doesn't necessarily mean somebody's shooting a gun. A gun incident for us could be an officer makes a traffic stop for a variety of offenses, and maybe the person gets arrested for having a warrant or a suspended driver's license. And during a search of the vehicle, they locate a firearm that maybe is illegally possessed. So in 2020, the whole year of 2020, which I realized which was an unusual year due to COVID, but there was 26 of those incidents. And in 2021, it jumped dramatically to 140. And I don't know if people have heard the term ghost gun, but we're seeing a lot of those. And it's scary because these types of guns are illegally manufactured, illegally produced, and we do not have the ability to track them. There's no background checks. Nobody's being sold. They're basically making these guns and they're getting into the wrong hands. And it's alarming the number of these types of firearms that we're recovering from the street. And in 2022, you can see that this was a little bit old, this chart, because this was from a presentation that I did on March 1st. But you can see in January, there was already 18. And if the trend were to continue, 2022 is going to follow that suit. And it's an alarming trend that we are focusing on as far as the danger that's associated with that. The second chart is related to the traffic enforcement that we're conducting. So you'll see there that the moving violations in 2020, we had 1,500, in 2021, 1,900. So there's been a significant amount of citations that have been issued. If you look at all the different ones, equipment, license, non-hazardous, well over into several thousand citations. And our traffic unit is supposed to consist of 4 motorcycle officers. I think sometimes there's a misconception about how many motorcycle officers, how many dedicated traffic enforcement personnel we have. It's 4, and right now we have 2 that are out injured. So we really rely on patrol in between various radio calls and such to help out with the areas that get reported in the traffic hotline, and make sure that we're paying particular attention to traffic enforcement concerns throughout the city. So a couple different things that we have available to us to try to stay in touch with the community and what is the priorities of the community are some software programs. One is called Zen City, and this is a public opinion polling software program, which the interesting thing about this one is these types of surveys are generally received by members of the community that haven't requested any police services. So it pops up on social media, on Facebook or on Instagram, and asks some questions about, do you feel safe? Do you trust the police department? What do you think are the #1 concerns? And it's just generally random through an algorithm to residents that are within the city limits, as opposed to somebody that maybe has had a call, they had a report, they were involved in a traffic accident. That's a different one that I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then this just asks general questions, and it allows us to analyze trust and safety scores, which I think are the 2 metrics that as a law enforcement agency, we should use to compare every type of service that we provide. Is the service that we're providing cause the community to increase the level of trust that they have for their police department? And are the services that we're providing cause the community to feel safer? And if the answer to those is no, then we may need to look at what we're doing and make a slight adjustment. And these types of reports that we get reflect the trust and safety scores throughout the city, provide us demographics, charts, a comparison for month over month, and then also what are identified as priorities. That's at the bottom of each chart, the horizontal bar graph. It's like pink and gray and kind of like a light green. Those are the benchmark concerns. That is what the citizens are identifying as priorities. And I can tell you that streets and traffic is always #1, always. And I think the reason for that is because these responses are generally from residents that haven't called the police for anything. But everybody is affected by streets and traffic in one way or another. People are commuting, people are walking, and it's an issue. It's an issue for me too. I live in the South Bay, and it is an ongoing issue. And it just shows how much of a focus that as a police department, we need to put into our traffic enforcement efforts, pursuing grants, community outreach. It can't just be done by enforcement. We can't rely on writing tickets as our sole means of improving the safety from a streets and traffic perspective. It needs to be a multifaceted approach that includes enforcement, of course, but also an educational campaign and involving the community and really getting the word out there, talking to the students at the school with our SROs, conducting community events, and again, pursuing grants so we have additional opportunities to conduct education and enforcement operations. Streets and traffic is always #1, always. Now, #2 and #3 have consistently, for at least the past year or so, kind of ticked back and forth between homelessness and theft-related items. And it depends. During certain months, the homelessness problem is more of a concern to the residents. And during certain months, the theft issue is more important. The good thing is that the violent related issues are generally not in the top three: streets and traffic, homelessness, and theft. But this is an opportunity for us to gauge who's providing us the data, how are we doing on trust and safety, and how we can make adjustments. So the two that I put up here right now, the one on the left is a citywide report, and then the one on the right is just for South Redondo. So we actually get a multitude of reports that include South Redondo, North Redondo, citywide, so we can actually do a comparison to make sure that the way that we're choosing to deploy our resources is in the best interest based upon what we have available. So we have another program. We have another program called Spider Tech. Now this one is different because this is actually a customer communication survey tool. So these types of surveys go out to anyone that has actually contacted the police department and requested services. Maybe you got in a traffic accident, maybe there was a theft report, maybe you called in because your neighbor was having a loud party. Anytime that somebody calls, then what we do is we have a program that is automatic and it sends out a survey to the caller asking for feedback. And we get a daily report that actually provides comments. And I've followed up on two of those this week myself. One, because it had a comment that said, the officer that responded was so professional and I felt so well taken care of. So I took the time to take that comment, forward it directly to that individual officer and say that tell this officer that they probably didn't even know that we were doing these surveys or getting these types of comments, but their professional conduct with that member of the community when nobody was watching had a significant impact and definitely worked to increase the trust with the community. And then there was another one that had a comment about an unpleasant phone call with a member of the police department. So I was able to reach out to the supervisor for that individual, and it turned out it was on a recorded line through communications, and we were able to review the recording. And as it turned out, the contact was professional, but the person was frustrated because they had to wait for the police to respond. When I looked at why the police hadn't responded, it's because all the units in the city were tied up on a robbery call. So there was a reasonable explanation, but it gave us an opportunity to reach out and provide that explanation. So it allows for lingering issues to be dealt with. So the chart that I have here shows how many messages were actually sent out. So in the month, this is for February. So in the month of February, we were able to send out 1,848 messages to people that had actually called the police for various things. That's a 20% increase over the previous month. And then I put a few of the metrics in there that I didn't want to have too many slides for the PowerPoint, so I just kind of put a bullet point in there so I can talk about them. But what was nice for me to see in this report was that 97% of the respondents to the survey indicated they were able to clearly explain the issue that they needed police resources for. And that's great, because I don't want people calling and having a hard time explaining it, especially a lot of times when there's a notification of the police department, it's a really bad day for somebody, maybe the worst day of their life, and they're in a bad position. And I want to make sure that we're having that compassion that somebody's able to explain why they need us. There's a few categories that are rated as the survey, and the survey is short, and it's short by design because we want people to do it. If it's too long of a survey, we're probably not going to get data from as many people, and we want to get as much data as possible. So there's a few questions that are rated on a scale of 1 to 3, 1 being the lowest, 3 being the highest. And the scores that I put there are the scores that we received for February. Very, very basic. Were you satisfied with the response of the police department? We got a 2.85. Of course, it's not perfect. 3 would be perfect, but it's still a pretty good score and means that we're doing pretty well considering the number of responses that we got. Are you satisfied with the response time? That's very, very important. Some of these agencies around Los Angeles County are so burdened with the call volume that it could be a very, very long time before a police officer gets there, even on significant calls. I mean, people are calling 911 and being put on hold in other cities, not in Redondo Beach or not. And for report calls, we're getting people there quickly. Part 1 calls, you're getting there within minutes, or if not faster. So the score of 2.8 for people being satisfied with the response time is good. Is there room for improvement? Always, but it's still good. And then customer service rating. You know, I like to say that we're a customer service organization with a law enforcement focus. So customer service is very, very important to me. And 2.77 customer service rating, for people that are having police services. Is there room for improvement? Yes, but it gives us an opportunity to look at that metric and see what we're doing. And when we compare it to all of the other programs that we have in place, the brief snapshot of the crime analysis I gave you, the public opinion polling software, it allows us to come together in our staff meetings and discuss all the various issues so that we can try to make informed decisions on how to deploy our resources. So these are just some areas of focus that I wanted to throw out there. Maybe it'll result in more questions. And this is the last slide I have in the PowerPoint. I'm not going to bore you with the PowerPoint all night, but this is some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So for 2022, quality of life, we're going to be focusing on quality of life issues and expanding our community services unit. The community services unit really excelled under the leadership of Chief Hoffman. And my intention is to take that unit and only strengthen it, because it's a very, very important aspect of the trust and safety component that we have in the community. And it also frees up the patrol officers to handle the patrol calls. And that's important as well, because we want those good response times. We want people to not be waiting at car accidents. We want to be able to have the appropriate response where we have units that are focused on dealing with quality of life and homelessness and code enforcement issues. I'm very happy that the city council approved our request for an overhire of a police sergeant, which I plan on promoting next week. And we're going to make a quality of life sergeant. So we're actually going to designate a supervisory position that is going to oversee the management of the quality of life issues in the police department, so that we can really make sure that we're getting the most out of the resources that we have dedicated to that. And that's going to be a focus for us. It already came up once tonight about the increase of the presence in the Pier and Harbor area. And that's part of the plan. I'm glad you asked. It gives me an opportunity to talk about it. So the new sergeant that we bring on as our quality of life sergeant, which is an overhire now, but we are going to be working on the budget to actually expand and make that position permanent, is going to be quality of life. And I'm actually going to do a minor department reorganization and restructure so that the Pier and Harbor unit is going to fall under the quality of life unit in the police department, which is in our Special Operations Bureau. And that is because of the nature of the pier layout. I think that that's the best spot for it, for the constant attention. And we actually had a captain with Public Works down at the pier substation today talking about improvements that can be made, which will be submitted as part of a capital improvement project so that the substation can get a facelift and be more user-friendly and available to the community. And we're going to be looking at increasing the presence down there in two ways, not just with personnel, but also with technology. We have advanced technology with cameras and lighting that will allow us to make the pier a safer place. And we're also going to be reactivating that substation so that we can have personnel down there, both in a sworn and non-sworn capacity. Part of the overhire program that was presented to council last night included 2 community service officers that would be an overhire position. And the intent is to hire 2 additional community service officers and then assign 2 down to the pier. I worked down at the pier from 1995 to 2000. And when I was down there, it was a fully staffed unit with community service officers that had limited enforcement capability. But the nice thing about it is that they wear a police uniform and they're out there on foot. They're contacting the businesses and the citizens, and they can write municipal code violations, bicycles, dogs, things like that, which fall into that quality of life category, and also staff the substation and be present for those that may need services. So that is part of the plan. We're just in the infant stages of implementing it, and it's perfect timing going into the summer months, which is our busy season down on the pier. And I'm hopeful that by the summer, there's going to be a lot of positive feedback about the police presence and the positive interaction between the police and the community down at the pier, which has been suffering for a little while, and we're going to do what we can to step that up. Another area of focus is going to be our recruitment and hiring and promotions. So recruitment's a challenge. Right now, we're authorized for 95 police officers, and we're at 88. So we have 7 vacancies, and it's tough. It's tough right now to find qualified candidates. The profession of law enforcement has been hit with a variety of challenges over the past several years, and it's difficult to find quality candidates. And we're not going to settle. We're not going to just hire people to fill the spots. We need candidates that are going to be able to show the standards that we have and provide the service that we demand. So it's tough. We did interviews today for pre-service and laterals, which basically mean they have some law enforcement experience. We did 7 interviews, and out of those 7, we have 2 that we're going to hopefully move into a background process. We have recruit, which means they have to go through the academy and everything, testing coming up in 2 weeks. But it's time consuming, you know. So if somebody retires, we have 3 planned retirements coming up in this calendar year. So when 2 lieutenants and 1 officer plan to retire, when a tenured officer retires and we start a recruit process, the testing process alone takes about 3 months for the written test, the physical agility test, the oral interview process. And then after that, we get a list and we can start the background process. Background can take up to about 3 months. So we're 6 months in before the academy even starts. Then the academy, which usually doesn't line up perfectly. A lot of times there's about a month gap or so, which we'll bring them on and do some training here with them. And then the academy is 6 months. So we're usually about a year in before a new police officer is even available to us in the field. And then the field training program starts. And that is a 6-month process where the new officers go with training officers 1 month at a time to learn everything that is required to be a police officer. And a lot of that is safety focused, but it's report writing and everything else that goes along with that. So best case scenario, from the time that we start testing for a new police officer until they're able to function in a vehicle by themselves is about 18 months. So when we have 3 people leave, it's really challenging. So we're going to be looking to hire 15 plus people over the course of the next year just to fill the vacancies that we have and anticipate. And same with the promotions. So we have a sergeant opening now. Well, now we have 2 because we got the overhire approved. So I met with 5 of the candidates between the last 2 days. I have 1 more meeting tomorrow. I plan to make 2 promotions next week. And then we're going to have a captain's test, which is going to fill the spot that I recently vacated. And we're going to be doing a lot of moving around to get people into position so that we can establish those units and continue providing the service that we are expected of. We have investigations units that we can direct to focus on specific issues. So one is our special investigations unit. And for 2022, we've made a shift to make sure that we're focusing on local issues. What we've been focusing on a lot is the commercial retail thefts that have been occurring from businesses up near the Galleria Mall, Bed Bath and Beyond, I think, or Bath and Body Works. I don't know. I don't shop there, but it's one of those places. And then Ulta Beauty, I think, where they pull up, there 3 or 4 people run in and steal all kinds of stuff. It's been a problem all over. I'm sure people have seen media reports on these types of crimes occurring. So we've dedicated a team to working on that with advanced resources, technology, tracking devices, advanced surveillance. And we've been able to make some significant arrests. And today in our staff meeting, we got a report that those crimes have dipped significantly. And it's great. And that's the purpose of having these types of units available in the city. And then we can focus on catalytic converter thefts. We have been very, very successful with the BAIT program, with the bicycle thefts, where we have bicycles that we've developed GPS tracking devices, and we're able to identify repeat offenders that are stealing these bicycles. And we're trying to focus on some of those localized issues that have been plaguing the city for a long time. And it's a constant challenge. I briefly mentioned the catalytic converter thefts and the ongoing issue that's created, and some of the strategies that we've taken, which is we've done multiple things with patrol efforts, with the special investigations unit doing surveillance, with the etching events. We actually have another one coming up on the 21st that is going to be done in the evening. So hopefully if people couldn't make it during the daytime ones, it's going to be after working hours for a lot of people. And then also we're going to be working on trying to do the ordinance. The way I view this is we need to try everything, because this is a problem that is occurring all over the place, and every little step that we can take, if we can prevent anybody from being a victim of it, then we're doing our job. So we're going to keep trying to come up with new, innovative, and creative ways to address these problems until it's not a problem anymore. Event planning is a big thing that we're going to be focused on in 2022. We have 2 beach life events in 2022, and those are very, very significant because it's such a large scale event with so many people that we have to dedicate a lot of time and resources into planning a safe event. And you'd probably be surprised if I told you how many staff hours go into properly planning one of these and what we do to prepare for it, with everything from the officers that are providing the security on the various shifts to having the SWAT team present but not visible, so that if something tragic were to happen, we can respond immediately, coordinating with the fire department, having an on-scene command post, coordinating with various federal agencies, and then obviously working with all the promoters of the event, and then developing our staffing plan so that we can still have adequate staffing in the city to provide services for the regular calls. It's a big deal for us to make sure that we plan these events safely. And it takes a lot of time for us to make sure that we do that. And 4th of July is a huge event. And with multiple fireworks displays, it pretty much takes every single member of the police department working for those events to be safe, because they're all-day events. And they're wonderful events. I'm so happy to be able to be part of them. But I just wanted to make sure that I shared that with everybody, that it is a significant area of focus. With the 2 Beach Life events and 4th of July, that requires a lot of preparation on our part to make sure that everybody can step out and safely enjoy those events. We're also going to be working on some infrastructure upgrades. I mentioned the Pierce substation a little bit. It's time for that to have some upgrades so that it's a little bit more user-friendly and open to the community. So we're going to be working with Public Works and other city departments to make sure that we can do some upgrades there, and also at the police department, so that we have meeting space and areas to conduct training operations for our members, so that we can focus on all the different areas of responsibility within the police department. And then community outreach. I wanted to make sure I put a bullet point in there about community outreach, because that is absolutely a focus for 2022 and always will be. We're actually doing a snow cone event tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day, green snow cones only, I was informed, down on the Esplanade, I believe from 12 to 2. I think around the Esplanade and Avenue I. So, who would have thought snow cones? But we go through hundreds of pounds of ice, and it's really cool. And we're going to continue doing events now that COVID's starting to ease up. We're going to be able to bring our community trailer out and put it in the parks and do the community briefings and be more accessible. Obviously, we were hit with a whole series of challenges related to the pandemic, and it's very nice to see that things are starting to be able to ease up a little bit so that we can be more approachable and interact more with the community. So community outreach is going to continue to be a huge issue for us. We're going to continue to maintain a significant area of focus on there. And like I said, my plan is to only do things that are going to strengthen that unit, so that we can continue to make sure that we have that response. And that rolls right into my last bullet point here, which is succession planning. Probably one of the top focuses for me for my entire duration, as long as I stay here as the chief, because I can't just be looking at what we're going to be doing 6 months or a year from now. I need to be looking at who can I prepare now that can step into the roles of sergeant, lieutenant, captain in 3 years or 5 years, so that we can make sure that all the great programs that we have that the community is supportive of, we have people that are prepared to step into those roles so the community doesn't see us slow down. And that takes a lot of planning. We have to rotate officers through assignments, get them the experience, the exposure, the training, so that we can continue to operate as a full service police department flawlessly. And that takes a lot of coordination. And that's why I'm here. That's my job. And I'm going to make sure that I maintain a team to focus on that. And it's going to be a lot. And I'm looking forward to it. So that's the last slide that I had. I will stop the screen share and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Wow, that is pretty impressive. I hope everybody learned a lot there. It sounds like you guys are incredibly busy, incredibly proactive rather than reactive, which is great to see out of our police department. I know where I'm going to be between 12 and 2 tomorrow. I'll take my kid there after school. She's done by then. I'm super happy. I'm a huge supporter of our police department. It's a great police department. I've had nothing but great interactions with everybody as a private citizen and also as a council member. So I'm super happy that you're so thoughtful and laid all this out for everybody. And I hope people understand the issues that we're facing as a city. But we're in really good hands, really are. I hear from other council members that their cities aren't necessarily on top of with police department, but we don't have a lot of the issues that some of the other places do in terms of morale or proactive thinking. And so I'm super happy that you've taken the reins. So we'll start to go into questions now. So Leslie Campaghi, you have your hand up first. What's your question for Chief Hoffman?
Well, first I want to say congratulations, Chief Hoffman, on your promotion. We're looking forward to a bigger, brighter future with our police department. Not that we didn't have a good one before, but we look forward to the enhancement of community services in particular. I wanted to also say thank you for the sign that you put out on Catalina Avenue about the loud exhaust. And what the fine was, $196. I posted a photo of that on one of the Facebook pages, Redondo Beach residents, and I couldn't believe there were like almost 300 people who liked that right away and a bunch of comments on it. And particularly, what I want to say is the noise has gone down tremendously on Catalina Avenue as a result of that. So it worked. We even saw somebody stop on a motorcycle to take a photo of it. So no doubt that they're sending it around to their other groups. And it also prompted other areas, of the city for residents to say, hey, we need that here, we need that there. But it does work. And so I wanted to say thank you very much. Regarding the pier, I live across the street from the pier, so that's a particular area of concern of mine. I'm glad to hear that the substation is going to be manned. And I would just ask, could we please do some better signage and better enforcement, or just education first, which doesn't seem to be happening, regarding dogs on the pier and in Veterans Park. Those two areas aren't supposed to have them, but they seem to always do. And I've seen dog fights. I've seen kids tripping over dog leashes, people not paying attention to it. And then you have some of the liverboards along the International Boardwalk, and they don't think any of those rules apply to them. So they hang out during the week with their dogs. And it just, if we want it to be clean and kept nicer, then, we kind of should abide by the areas that aren't supposed to have dogs being maintained that way. So those were my comments, and thank you again.
Absolutely. And that's all part of the plan. I think with the lack of presence, it's maybe starts off with somebody with their dog off the leash one time, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, nothing ever happens. So why stop now? And that's part of the plan with increasing the presence down there with both police officers and the community service officers, getting people back in the substation. And I think that dogs off leash is one of those issues, is quality of life that we're going to be focusing on. And that's part of the overhire and getting the sergeant and the community service officers down there. And I also want to thank you, because that picture was shared with me that you posted on Facebook, and Todd shared it with me. And I was so impressed by the number of responses you have. I don't know if you noticed, but I said, well, if we got this response from one sign, let's put up a second sign. So did you see the second one? So I said, let's go put up a second one. So we put a second one on Torrance Boulevard for the vehicles that would be coming out of the structure. So there's actually two signboards down there right now, both with the same message, so that we could just reinforce it. And then obviously they followed up. I don't know if you were on when Todd was talking about it, but we've had a series of details over the weekend, and they wrote 17 tickets for loud exhaust over the weekend alone. So, and we're going to be able to keep that up. And that's one of those things, the word will spread, and hopefully the decline that you've seen will remain.
Awesome. So awesome. Thank you. Thanks for your comments, Leslie. Wayne Craig, you're next.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Citizen Police Academy, which the chief had mentioned. I'm actually enrolled in class number 45. We're about eight classes into a 13-week course. And I highly recommend it for any Redondo residents who really wants to know exactly what our police department does. And I say this because I actually have a lot of experience in security and working interface with law enforcement, having worked in the security industry for about 20 years. I was a director at Brinks Armored Transport. And so we interface with FBI gang units and local police all the time. And I had no idea the things that our police department not only can do and is tasked with doing, and the challenges they have. And I encourage anyone who really wants to really see what goes on and how it works. It's quite fascinating. I mean, one of the things that I've always noticed, I spend a lot of time at City Hall, as a lot of you guys can mention, but I hadn't really gone through a tour of the dispatch center downstairs, which is quite fascinating. There's a lot of interesting equipment they have, a lot of things that they could do, and just amazing the amount of attention to detail that they're able to do with a relatively small police force. I mean, we have about 65,000 people in our city, and they're able to do what they can do just because of great leadership for our city, and I think just really smart utilization of resources and understanding of things. So my hats off to the police department. And I really got to tell you, the class is really informative, and I want to thank actually a good friend of mine who actually retired, Sergeant Alan Beck. He was a really good friend of mine, and he just retired actually 3 years ago, I think, from the force. And he's been bugging me for years. Hey, you got to go through this course. It's really interesting, and I'm really glad I have. And I look forward to. We have about 4 or 5 more classes left, and I think it's just going to get better. And I really think that, and I would certainly want to plug the chief and welcome aboard, and congratulations on your new position.
Thanks, Wayne, and I'll see you at the Citizens Police Academy graduation. I'm looking forward to that.
Thanks.
How many classes is it? 13, did you say, Wayne?
Yeah, it's 13 courses, and they're 3 hours each week, and they're broken up into various components of really what the police department does. And one of the most they're all pretty interesting, but I got to tell you, the one that is probably the most, I think that people really need to understand, they do like a mock traffic stop where you actually are acting like an officer. They give you a gun, a fake, obviously a fake one, gun belt and everything. You have to respond and walk up to a car. And how would you handle that? And how do you keep it from going from just being a normal stop to something that could be very, very bad? And then they have a mock situation where you're responding to like a video and training. We use something like that when I was at Brinks, but this is really quite different. And what you have to do in the split second, a millisecond, you have to make a decision, good, bad, or whatever, but you have to make a decision because your job is to protect the public and to get home safely. And I think that it really, I think, put things in perspective. You understand what our officers have to go through, and just everything else to do. We actually had a really good session last night on the community services unit, which the chief was just talking about, and they have a wide breadth of things, and we were talking a lot about the homeless involvement, what they're doing with that, and actually I learned one thing too. I think I personally have stopped about 30 or 35 calls on leaf blowers because I actually talked to my neighbors and told them, hey, if you do this, you're going to get a ticket, and handed them a little form, and we don't get any leaf blowers anymore. And so so the community service people were like, thank you, Joe and Norma, or I forgot her name right. We're both telling me, thank you for doing that. So I offer my services when the other officers said they have a problem at Marshall Fields. I said, well, tell me when you go by, and I'll pass them out, and they'll stop doing them too.
Appreciate that. We'll take all the help we can get. That's a problem to tackle. Have you been on your ride along yet?
No, I'm actually gonna do that not this Friday, next Friday.
That's always pretty good. And you're going on a Friday too. That's
I figure Friday's probably the most stuff, and some of the other course members who've been telling me some interesting stories about stuff they've had, and I figured just check it out and see what's going on, and I really look forward to it.
That's usually a pretty eye-opening experience. I mean, you never know. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but usually the ride along, people really enjoy that.
Yeah, thank you.
That video training program is really amazing. You have to make split-second decisions. Somebody might be holding a knife, somebody might be taking a hostage, all kinds of things that you guys encounter. It's amazing. The training that's required to make split-second decisions. And I wish everybody could experience that because it's challenging, right?
It really is.
You're not only protecting, yourselves, you're protecting the public, and that's hard. That's really hard to, with so much input going on at one time. So I assume that's what you did, Wayne, right? With the
yeah, very different. The one actually was surprisingly enough was the when you respond on a mock domestic disturbance call where you have a couple that are fighting or arguing, and all the nuances that happened so quickly. Because, for example, like I did a couple things which the one officer thought was good, but then you have to notice other things like one of the people looked like they were injured. How do you handle that? Do you have to arrest someone? Do you have to do this, or how do you keep it from escalating? And when people have emotionals that are hot like that, they will respond maybe in kind, and pull a weapon on an officer. You never know. It's very, very, very amazing how fast things get out. You watch them on movies where things go out of control, but they could easily happen in this situation. And again, you have to make a decision and you have to decide what to do. And that takes a lot of experience and it's a lot of pressure. And these guys, guys and gals really put a lot into this, and they risk their lives every day for our safety. And we need to respect that and acknowledge that.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Sheila.
First of all, I want to tell you, thank you so much for your presentation. It has really, as a parent, made me feel so much stronger in knowing that we have someone at the helm that is actually about, law enforcement. And as a parent, like with our group, we have about 30% who are in law enforcement. I come from a family of law enforcement, and it was very dismaying for a couple years ago when you have the catchphrase defund the police, and it takes a certain mentality. I used to work in a prison, and like you align with certain people and you understand. And so when they did that, and you have certain factions of people like thinking that's okay. And when I hear about the resistance, it's like in my family, our families and our parent groups, we've always supported the police. We've always wanted law enforcement and lawfulness. Okay. And Redondo deserves that. So I'm very, very touched. I'm going to go back to my group and let them know that you're the man. Okay. Because we really needed this. And as parents, we were so disheartened with everything that was going on. We saw things going on in the city, and I'm not blaming anyone. I don't have time to be a victim, but I'm just saying, I love your presentation. I love your honesty and giving us the statistics, and people need to know what's going on. So thank you so much. Welcome for coming aboard. My name is Sheila Garcia. You're going to be seeing more of me and some other parents, and we truly appreciate it. We truly appreciate
my pleasure. And I appreciate the kind words, but really, I've been at Redondo Beach for 28 years now, and the support that we get from the residents of Redondo Beach is just truly amazing. And I'm just one person at the police department. We have 154 full-time employees, and it takes all of us to provide the services to get that impression. All the interactions that everybody has. So I just try to make sure that I put myself in a position to offer the resources that everybody needs to go out there and provide that excellent service. So, but we couldn't do it without the residents. So really.
Exactly. Thank you. That's what we need.
And thanks, Sheila, for your comments. Andy Lesser.
Yes, just a couple of things. Once a year, the police have a safety fair at the Civic Center, and they have that firearms training. I call it shoot, don't shoot. And Wayne Craig said is right. I mean, until you put yourself in the position of holding, even the simulated gun is pretty heavy. So it kind of reflects what a fully loaded 9mm would feel like. And I mean, it's really terrifying to be in a police officer's shoes when suddenly something goes bad. Somebody comes out of nowhere while they're distracted. So it's pretty hair raising. Chief, thanks for everything. I want you to know that while this meeting was going on, there were a couple more traffic stops by motor officers.
Good.
My neighbors out on their balcony on Pearl were almost cheering, but they could see the huge smiles. And on a personal note, years ago, there was a motorcycle officer in Torrance that would sit nearly all the time on Prairie, just south of 190th. There was a little driveway alcove and a gate. And after several weeks or a month, I mean, I know we don't have the manpower, and I hope our 2 injured motor officers recover and get back to duty soon. But I call that motorcycle enforcement there on Prairie the ghost motorcycle, because even though I haven't seen a motorcycle officer there in years, I still think there's a motor officer going to be hiding there. So I'm hoping that, with enough consistency at a given location, manpower allowing, people will start to think, hey, Pearl and Francisca, where's the officer hiding? So
yeah, I think hopefully that works. And I think
that works. So thank you.
You bet. And I think from the traffic enforcement standpoint, there's other things that we can do also, working with other city departments. Sometimes those speed feedback signs, that the solar powered ones that say slow down, those have an effect. And so we can do there's other traffic calming projects. So I think that all the city departments working together will hopefully make an impact throughout the city. And it's a big challenge. It's always the #1 issue.
Oh,
Obviously, we're focused on it. being
One
effective.
thing I always asked Chief Kaufman to do was utilize those electronic signs more, just like you're doing with the loudness of the vehicles and the exhaust. Is stop signs are enforced in Redondo Beach. Speeding is enforced in Redondo Beach. And, you know, that will make people think twice also. They see that electronic sign that says stop sign running, or California stops, or no, and back it up, and that works. That,
Yep.
you know, that works. So
Education component's important.
that's it. Thanks again.
Thanks, Andy.
Yep.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Laura, you have the floor.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you. I also went through the Citizens Police Academy course. I'm class number 40 and enjoyed it very much, learned a lot. Have the opportunity to volunteer in a lot of events, and I look forward to doing that. It makes me feel good that I'm doing something for my community. I have a question regarding Everbridge, the communication that goes out to everybody via text message or email. It doesn't seem to be consistently happening, and I always feel like you guys must have a good reason for that. But sometimes there's an airship going around and it's in the middle of the day, and it's like, do I leave and go out, or is it safe to go out? And then there's no Everbridge communication. Obviously at night I don't, but during the day, it just seems to be inconsistent when we get those messages.
And I think that, you know, when we have an incident, we send one out, but we can't control when a helicopter chooses to fly over Redondo Beach and not communicate with us. And that happens all the time. In fact, I was at home the other day. I live just on the border of South Redondo and Torrance, and I saw a helicopter. And so I called and I said, what's the helicopter doing? They said, we don't have a helicopter doing anything. Oh, okay. And, you know, that explains it, because sometimes that happens. But what I can tell you is that from the Everbridge standpoint, when we have a road closure because of a car accident, or we have a perimeter due to a crime and we're conducting a search, if it's an incident that we've initiated, we absolutely will communication if it's going to impact the public. But sometimes it could involve another city, or a news helicopter, or a police helicopter that doesn't involve anything, and they just happen to be on a sightseeing tour around the beach, and we don't have any control over that whatsoever. So what I can tell you is that although it may be annoying, at least it shouldn't be a safety concern. And when we do have incidents, we try to make sure that our watch commanders communicate with our dispatch center to get that information out in a timely manner.
Thank you. And my second question is, are we going to have a canine challenge event this year? I have attended in the past where all the agencies come and they bring their canine officers, and they do a challenge where they jump over things and they do all these.
I heard them talking about it, and I think that they're going to try to get that going. Yes, obviously it took a back seat with COVID because of the intense, but I did hear the canine team discussing the fact that they're trying to revive that and get it going again this year at the high school.
Great, and I'd like to
because that's a
thank
fun
you for
event.
continuing those things.
I always wanted to be a canine officer, and I had the opportunity to, but that's such a cool job.
Yeah, it's really a cool show.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh, thank
I think
you.
it's usually in June. I know, Andy, you've been involved with it. If I'm not correct. Was it that, or was another thing, a rescue?
Yeah, it's, well, our rescue group has always attended. That event was sponsored by the LA County Police Canine Association. And recently Redondo Beach has been participating and offering up the stadium. So they're sort of combined, because Redondo Beach PD used to have their own demonstration with canine, and now it's integrated as one. So I've been meaning to call them, because I think they try to do it, you know, in the late spring, early summer. So I can follow up with that. I'm going to give them a call. It's the LA County Police Canine Association, and see what they're up to.
Super, thank you. Angela, you have the last question for Chief Hoffman, and then we'll wrap up the meeting. I've got a few things to talk about that we talked about last night. So Delia, you're on mute. There you go. Yes.
Okay. Okay, first of all, thank you for your presentation. Give me hope that will be a big change, okay? But now I have this question. I read a lot about what they are doing in other countries. And because here we have problem to get people, to hire people, the police use the seniors like me, that nobody think the senior is, they think maybe is stupid, okay? And they walk along the parks, they walk along the city, each one, I think they call decoy. I don't know if I use the right word. And that senior decoy walk around, and when see something suspicious or something, or take the license number or something, someone that is doing something incorrect or whatever, or somebody selling drugs that they do in the parks, they walk innocent, and then they walk a little more when nobody can see them, and call with the name, mariposa, like a butterfly or whatever. And the police immediately, and the senior continue walking like nothing happened and disappear. But the police immediately cut the persons. And that's used in many countries, and it works. I am the one volunteer to start doing that.
We actually we have that program already. We have a program called Volunteers in Policing. We call it our VIP program. And we have, it mostly consists of retired residents that we have do vacation checks and drive around the city. We've actually trained them so that they can issue handicap parking violations. And I had 2 of them come into the office today, and I chatted with them. And it's actually a very committed core, and it's a great group of people. It's our Volunteer in Policing VIP program, and I'll be happy to get you some information on that if you're interested in being part of it.
They don't work along with the policeman, because I saw the volunteer in the car with the policeman. This is no, the person walk alone, like I walk around the city and watching with the eyes and ears alert. That's a totally different approach that you go with the police next to you or wherever. That's
We'll take all the help we can get. All 65,000 residents, make sure you plug in the direct line to dispatch and give us a call anytime you see anything, and we'll try to pull up our bargain on the response times and get out there as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Delia. Thanks for your comments on that. Good idea. So we'll wrap things up a little bit. There's a couple comments in the chat from Tasha, for example. She talks about Lila Murrah and the incredible work she's doing with the homeless. Totally agree with that. I rely on Lila so much, and anybody that's not followed her on Facebook, you should. Lila Omura Garcia, O-M-U-R-A. And also your question about electric leak blowers, they are not allowed. The reason isn't just because of noise, it's about air pollution. We have complaints from kids and other people that have asthma. They generate a lot of, it's not, I agree, it's not the problem that the 2-stroke engines have with gasoline, which I think will eventually be banned in this area because of the pollution it creates. But it's about air pollution from particulate matter that's blowing around, and quite honestly, doesn't work very well. So that's, we may revisit that. We might allow electric one day, but we need to enforce whatever it is we have right now. So I want to thank you, Joe, for showing up and presenting your really interesting presentation, PowerPoint presentation. I'm sure we'll have updated information in the next six or 9 months. I feel like we're in great hands. I judged on the reaction tonight. I know everybody feels the same way. And change is always an interesting thing, but it sounds like there's a lot of continuity as well and innovative stuff happening at the same time.
Absolutely. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that I try to be as accessible to everybody as possible. In fact, I actually emailed with Andy Lesser and Wayne Craig both last night briefly while I was sitting at the council meeting. So feel free to reach out to me. My email is joe.hoffman@redondo.org. So if you have a question, send me an email. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me, as I'm always running around. So the phone is usually the best way, but I'll get back to you eventually. You know, if I'm busy or tied up or out at a training, I'm going to be at a conference next week and I've got various things going on, but I work for you. So if there's something I can do for you or a question I can answer, one thing I can tell you is I'm always going to answer your question honestly. You can't expect to always like my answers, but at least you're going to get an honest answer. So feel free to reach out to me if there's ever anything I can do for you. And then hopefully Todd will invite me back to a meeting at some point in the future and we can talk about what happens to be going on at whatever point in the future that is.
Well, you help sell tickets, so of course I'll invite you back. That's for sure. So thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to run. My daughter's in a track meet. I'm going to go try to catch her 2-mile race at South High School, if that's okay.
Sure. No, good luck to her. Hope she does
Okay.
well. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for everybody.
Joe.
It was really a pleasure chatting with everyone. Have a great night. Thank you.
Enjoy. Well, we'll wrap this up in about 5 minutes. Just want to tell you a few things that have happened over the last meeting. As Barb Epstein mentioned, we passed a licensing agreement with the South Bay Parkland Conservancy last night for our first community garden. That's really exciting for our city. A lot of other cities have done it. A lot of you have probably seen the one in South Park from Hermosa. We're going to do it in Alta Vista Park, and I think there's going to be 26 raised beds that people can rent for a year. I want to say it's $100 that they're talking about, but that's a great thing. One of the cool things about having it there is it's right near a big apartment complex, Brookside Village, and condo complex, so people can go there, walk there, tend their gardens, grow fruits and vegetables. I'm hoping we expand this to near Dominguez Park, the right of way or place in Dominguez Park, and then North Redondo for sure. Maybe up on the right of way up in North Redondo. But it's a great thing for our city. A lot of us don't have big yards or any yards, and so we like our fresh fruits and vegetables, and I think it's a great option for people. The next thing is the dog park. We have over $300,000 that we've saved to put towards improvements in the dog park. And so we're going to change the fencing soon. We're going to change the lighting. If you know those historic lighting, we're going to redo the lighting in the parking lot there. We're going to add new trash receptacles. And one of my favorite things that we're going to try to do, we're going to need the permission of Edison to do this, is to add mulch instead of dirt. I don't know how many of you have a dog. I know Rob has a dog. I have a dog. I take to the dog park a lot. And when the dog comes back, it's all dust. He's all dusty. Or if there's mud, he's muddy, right? And so the fire-resistant mulch is what we want to put there. We're going to probably put some obstacle/agility. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, agility things for obstacle courses. We're talking about the Friends of the Dog Park building those, and that's going to be a great addition to it. So look for improvements in the dog park. We are going towards a tree ordinance. A lot of cities around here have tree ordinances protecting our historical trees. Keeping our urban canopy and urban forest alive. Extra trees, lots of trees leads to higher property values and cooler streets. So I think we're doing that. One of the things I'm very cautious of, though, is taking away individual private property owner rights. And so I think we have to have an adequate balance. If somebody takes a tree down, especially a historic tree, they should be able to replace it by a 5-to-1 ratio. The goal is to get as many trees out there as we can, so they can either contribute to a fund or pay a fine, I guess. But people should still be able to do what they need to do in their yards. And so, hopefully we get this tree ordinance passed. We're going to go through a lot of iterations of it, but Manhattan has a tree ordinance. I think Hawthorne has a tree ordinance. A lot of cities have tree ordinances around here. Maybe Hawthorne's the only one that doesn't, actually. And then finally, I want to share this with you, and that is let me see if I can find it. One second. It's some drawings from a couple of things. One is the skate park that is we approved last night. This is the skate park that is going in near where the Fun Factory used to be. It's a skate park, but it's going to have some availability for people that want to use it for yoga, for movie nights, everything else. So, you know, we're looking at doing this in the next probably 6 to 8 weeks. And the goal is kids need a place to skate here. But it's going to be something that's going to be really spectacular. Those of you who've ever been to Venice Beach knows that the skate park there is a hit with a lot of people. They stop by. It's not just for the skaters. It's for a lot of people to stop in, watch people. We could have some competitions there. And we decided to go with a base plan, but we're going to eventually, hopefully, move towards an enhanced skate park with more features, and that we can hopefully get some funding for that in this year's budget, and then hopefully implement the enhancements over the fall. And then finally, I wanted to show you one other thing, and that is what some of the things we're looking at implementing at Dominguez Park. Those of you who know, Dominguez Park's playground has kind of been in bad shape, and now we're looking at doing things like educational panels, natural play, slides, all kinds of neat things. And so we're going to have a pretty neat skate park, I think. Kids park, and that's going to be what we're also going to do. I don't know. Can you all see this slide too? This diagram? Okay. It shows you some of the things, some of the layout. We're going to change the layout around a little bit. Dominguez Park.
Big pot or small pot?
Can everybody hear that? Can everybody see that? Let me try it one more.
I think the bigger pot has more capacity, but you have to wipe it out with.
Okay, we'll unmute Barb. Okay. So anyway, this is a diagram that shows you a little bit about a legend that shows you a little bit about what we're going to have there. You know, granite trails, fencing, picnic tables, shade structures, everything. So that's pretty exciting what we're going to do with that. That's going to take about 10 to 12 months to design and then implement after that. We have most of the funding. We'll probably have to get additional funding in this year's upcoming budget. So anyway, that's kind of it, what's happening. Mark mentioned the King Harbor's amenities plan. And so lots happening from a park side. And we're looking at, you know, rebuilding the Seesaw Lagoon. So much is happening in our city. It takes a lot of time to turn a cruise ship around. So sometimes we have to have some patience. But in the next, 2 to 3 years, hold on to your hats because a lot of new things will be happening in our city. So anyway, I thank you all for attending. We had a great meeting tonight. Good attendance. We'll probably have one in April and in May, and then we'll take maybe June off. We'll figure out. June's our budget month, so we'll figure it out between now and then. But anyway, thanks for your input on whether or not we want to have it indoors or outdoors. We'll decide in the next month or two what we do going forward. But thank you all. Stay safe. Look forward to seeing you again in April and at the next council meeting, which is April I want to say it's the 5th, April 5th. Anyway, see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Thank you.